The greatest rule of thumb, of course, is that if you have to call yourself masculine or alpha, then you probably do not exhibit those qualities in general. People keep asking me whether or not we need a Joe Rogan of the left or whether or not I am the Joe Rogan of the left. And I keep repeating to the Democrats, at least, that like a Joe Rogan is not going to solve their problems. They need to change their policies.
I think recently you said on Twitter or something like that, that you realized that you hadn't taken a weekend off from streaming in 18 months or a year and a half or something like that?
18 months, no, since 2018.
2018, that's what it was, since 2018.
I had not taken 3 continuous days off.
Right, you can't do that at 60.
That's what you think.
Sure. All right, y'all, if you are a regular listener to this show, then you know that for the past couple of years, I have been very interested in the state of masculinity. We've talked about the rise of bro podcasting, the male loneliness crisis, male body image, and there is one man that I think embodies all of these conversations. Hasan Piker. He is a hugely popular Twitch streamer who talks about progressive politics with his more than 2.9 million followers. He's covered topics ranging from the war in Gaza to immigration and even the New York City mayoral race. He also has hugely loyal fans. Here's just some of the things they say about him. Shaka143 of TikTok says, "Tell him, Habibi." Swept the Leg from Reddit says, "He is a himbo gateway drug to leftist thought." And lil.gay.ray from Instagram says, "Not to be dramatic, but I'd die for this man, LOL." And Hasan, I don't know if I've ever heard the term himbo gateway drug before. Is that how you describe yourself?
Yeah, I think that nails it, I guess. Just gateway drug to empathy. in a himbo format.
I will say, I do think that this is like a super useful example to get into something else that is kind of going on. Like, you haven't just gotten attention for your politics. There's also been a lot of talk about your specific brand of masculinity. Earlier this year, you were profiled by the New York Times, and that headline was really something.
I think the original headline was "Progressive Mind in a MAGA Body." That's what it was.
Yes, you are correct. The headline was "Progressive Hasan Piker, a progressive mind in a MAGA body." Which, I have to ask, what is a MAGA body?
I don't know.
Do you know what that is?
No, I believe that they were trying to say that this is the manosphere. And there's a lot of content creators in the manosphere that work out. And I think that's what they were trying to point to. But when you invoke the MAGA body, I don't think most people, New York Times readers or not, are going to look at that and think like a very brolic guy. They're going to think of, I don't know, someone like a normal American, the average American. The New York Times was specifically, I think, trying to invoke the image of this this masculine man who works out quite a bit.
I find it interesting, perhaps the everyday person might think of a MAGA body as an everyday person's physique. Yet, it sounds like that headline kind of tied masculinity to a certain type of physique, or masculinity to MAGA in a really specific way.
For sure. I think that's deliberate, and I think it's wrong. I don't think masculinity is associated with MAGA. I don't even think masculinity is necessarily associated with working out. I think what we consider to be masculine is just confidence. That's what I believe is the number one mistake that many people make when talking about masculinity. It's just an outward expression of confidence and I guess a demonstration of leadership skills. That's what most of these people are pointing to when they talk about being alpha or being masculine in general, a lot of these people online. The greatest rule of thumb, of course, is that if you have to call yourself masculine or alpha, then you probably do not exhibit those qualities in general.
You talk a lot about working out. You also like video games. And on top of all of that, you talk about politics on the internet. But these are very much right now activities associated with bro culture. Bros, I think, are often stereotypically considered to be conservative. Why do you think these activities, like working out, video games, et cetera, why do you think they are so conservative coded?
I wouldn't say they're necessarily conservative coded. I would just simply say that they are easier to be branded as apolitical. I mean, there's a very funny long-standing joke or meme in the gaming sphere where people will say, "Oh, why do you have politics in my video games?" Like, get politics out of my video games is like this rallying cry from Gamergate onward, and it usually is deployed at any video game that has like a black female protagonist, and then immediately that's like being considered as political. It's like the two genders, white man and political, and these guys will unironically say things like Call of Duty is not political, or Call of Duty wasn't political until there was like a black woman in it. Yeah, they just don't understand that like Call of Duty has of course always been political. And it's sometimes making a criticism of American imperialism. In other instances, it's quite literally defending American imperialism, but it's never not political. It's just that a lot of guys don't read it as politics when it's something that they agree with or aren't putting much thought into. And I think that's what happens in a lot of these spaces for a lot of these hobbies is that we cede territory to right-wing actors because they get to angle it as though they're above the interests of politics. Don't try to read too much into this thing. Just enjoy it. Which is interesting because I kind of do that as well. Like I say that same thing every now and then. Like I had Dr. Abdul El Sayed on yesterday. He's running for senator in Michigan, in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
He's great. He's also kind of a bro himself. He loves working out.
I've seen him post about it online for sure.
Yeah. And we were talking and he said something. He was like, I felt bad. I felt uncomfortable, but I really like Top Gun. And I was like, dude, you don't have to say that. Like, yeah, it was a good movie, Sure, it's a movie about American imperialism, but like, it's a good movie. Sometimes it's okay to just be like, I like this. This is funny. I like this movie. This is a good movie. It was well shot.
But I wonder, like, his hesitation to embrace or even to openly embrace like his love of Top Gun with him and also sometimes other politicians or other public figures, there is this desire to not be associated with things that kind of bro culture. Do you think that there is almost like some, I don't know, like some residue there or something that people don't want to touch or don't want to like associate themselves with right now in terms of like bros in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there is still a heavy focus on the aesthetics for a lot of politicians on the liberal side of things, on the Democratic Party side of things, and I think that heavy focus on the optics of it all makes people a lot more careful when bracketing themselves in a certain way. I think that if they were more policy focused, it wouldn't really matter necessarily whether they're coming in this like broy veneer or not. But I think what's most important is to just be honest and be earnest and be who you are. That's what I am, at least. And that's why it's always funny when, the New York Times is writing about me and they ask me like, do you feel like this is a carefully crafted, perfectly balanced out character that you've created? And it's like, no, it's just I just grew up playing video games. I like playing basketball. I like competitive sports, and I like working out. This is just who I am.
A lot of young guys have the same interest and end up going down another political pipeline. And you came out progressive. Like, what kind of caused your political development to lean toward progressivism?
I mean, growing up in Turkey, I always had a much more liberal slant, I would say, especially because I saw the formation of the Erdogan coalition, the Erdogan government, and I saw the repressive nature of conservatism. One of my first interactions with government repression in general, was when Recep Tayyip Erdogan sued one of the cartoon newspapers that I used to read with political satire. And that's when I was like, whoa, this is messed up. I don't really like this guy. Outside of that, I growing up in Turkey, always had an anti-imperialist slant, which is a given usually for people on that side of the planet who are privy to the negative consequences of American empire, who get to experience it firsthand, or at least secondhand. But when I came to the United States of America, I think that's what was like such a radicalizing moment for me. It was healthcare. It was the ambulance bill that I got when I was in college. I was like, this is insane.
What happened? If you can share. If not, understandable.
I just blacked out. I didn't call the ambulance myself. I just woke up at the hospital, and then I saw the bill, and I was like, I can't believe it. And I already had this attitude that a social democracy is perhaps the best possible way to go about things, because I came from Turkey. I saw the importance of public education, free
Sure.
public college, and a nationalized healthcare system. Even if it's not the best funded, it's still really good that it exists, right? That's the attitude that I had. And then when I saw private healthcare here, I was like, oh, it's over. This is never. This is the worst thing on the planet. We need to put an end to this immediately. Whoever is doing this, they need to stop. Was my initial attitude.
I could see how that would be a complete shock if it's something you never had to think about before.
Yeah.
And you call an ambulance to pick you up in an emergency in a time of need, and then suddenly you're like, oh, this costs money. But I don't think it's something that anybody wants to think about when they're in like a low moment like that.
Yeah, and also I'll admit, like, I think I was too well educated at that point to be duped by some dude online being like, that's because of Mexicans that you have to pay for this ambulance. But I do think that in that moment of weakness, in that moment of anger and resentment, if there was someone out there who was charismatic and I wasn't very well read and I did not know that there was an alternative readily available, like a public healthcare system was readily available that I had seen work in a much poorer country like Turkey, I probably would be like, I'm really pissed off. Who else is pissed off with me? And if you got a dude on YouTube saying, yeah, I'm pissed off too. You know why we're pissed off though? Because the Democrats care about Mexicans and Guatemalans and trans people, and you should be pissed off about that. That's weird, right? And you know, all of that combined, I think, creates this perfect powder keg where young men who are already predisposed to reactionary tendencies find themselves swept away, desperate for a sense of community, desperate for an identity. They find themselves in right-wing circles, and they unironically wear it as a brand, where they think that being politically right-wing is a way to demonstrate your machismo, is a way to demonstrate how masculine you are. It's kind of funny because it's not the case. And I feel like I brick a lot of people's brains for that reason. And then they see that and they just can't contend with it. Where like in a world where you look more like Ben Shapiro than myself, you want to believe that simply saying the things that Ben Shapiro is saying is going to make you more masculine.
We're talking about sort of how your progressive politics had developed over time. And speaking of your politics, like you have done interviews with AOC, Bernie Sanders, Zohran Mamdani, but also you sat down with figures like Theophin, and most recently, at least at the time of this conversation, the Nelk brothers,
The Nelk
or the
boys.
Nelk boys, right after they,
The Nelk
right
brothers.
after they had interviewed Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was something. It was something. What's your thought process behind engaging both progressive politicians and people who share similar politics to you, as well as, you know, more conservative or questioning figures like, you know, the Nelk Boys and Theophin?
So I bracket those guys off as like, I guess, apolitical. Like in the, you know, they represent the median voter quite well, as a matter of fact, especially
Wait,
with how.
you mean you just to pause, you mean you bracket someone like Theophin more as apolitical, or you consider the Nelk Boys apolitical as well? No, you think they're conservative.
I'm saying
yeah.
that they're conservative, but they're not a mouthpiece for the party in the same way that like the Daily Wire is, or the same way that Charlie Kirk is. So those guys are. Nelk is probably at the tail end of this. Like that's the closest to the Daily Wire and the PragerUs of the world. Whereas like the Theophins and you know Andrew Schultz and all of these other podcasts, like they just kind of go along with the wind. And they will find themselves swept away with like right-wing sentiment. I mean, to a certain degree, one might even consider it to be grifting, I guess. But I think it's more so just like someone who doesn't have a well-defined political worldview. The reason why I consider them in a separate category than like the Daily Wires of the world and the Charlie Kirks of the world, the Fox News of the world, is because like those guys are deliberately doing right-wing political propaganda, and their entire job relies on them being a consistent defender of the Republican Party and reactionary thought, whereas a lot of these other podcasters, they will change their attitude. While they command influence and attention within the base of support for the Republican Party, they will change their perspective. As you know, they'll jump ship, I guess, far before any Republican commentator ever would. they're easier to convince, and therefore their audiences are easier to convince.
Is that something you take into account then when sort of like debating these guys or having or like, streaming with them or talking to them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I take into account. I know for a fact that Charlie Kirk's audience is coming in specifically to watch him dominate someone like a liberal, whereas like I don't think Theophin's audience is that invested in politics at all. Even if they're seeing an expression of politics, they're not reading it as political. They're just mostly looking at it on moral terms, like Israel. Theophin is very obviously very open about his distaste for what Israel has done in Gaza. He's called it a genocide. He'll still go and interview J.D. Vance, but even in that interview, he'll bring that up. He'll bring that. He'll call into question. And I think like he is a better demonstration of what the average American feels like.
It makes me think about I don't know if you're keeping up with Joe Budden all the time, but thinking about how Mark Lamont Hill, like writer,
I
scholar,
love Mark.
This he knows his stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he's been doing that kind of sort of public intellectual work for a long time. And now he's on Joe Budden's kind of video podcast and
I know,
down
but
with
he's killing
him.
it.
But it's a similar philosophy to what you're describing.
I texted him about literally what you're telling me right now the other day, where I was like, bro, it's crazy how it's crazy how appreciative I am of what you're doing, because like it's what I do every day, which is like butt heads with some of the dumbest people. But you have to keep your composure. He's so good at disarming his opponent and then like getting his point across. I really appreciate that.
And that makes me wonder, like the way that you're thinking about what Mark Lamont Hill is doing, and also like kind of how you described how you think about a lot of this sort of mass audience of a lot of times guys who think of themselves as apolitical, right? Who do you think your audience is, and what do you think they see in you?
My audience is pretty diverse, I would say. It's like quarter female, 75% male, which is definitely a much higher percentage of female fans than most of the other content creators in the space that I occupy, because Twitch is like very male dominated, white male dominated. Yeah, that's what my audience profile is as well. It's 18 to 35-year-old men for the most part. And a lot of them are white. A lot of them are atheist or agnostic. A lot of them are in college and education, or have just started their jobs.
But what do you think they are looking for from you? What do you think they like see in you that keeps them engaged?
I think that they want a shared space. They want a sense of community, because they see everything that's going on in in the world, and they feel as though, at least this is what I think that I serve the purpose of. They see all of this stuff happening in the news, and they're like, this makes me angry. Why is no one communicating the anger that I'm experiencing? And I think they see me as someone who goes, someone who has shared values to a lot of these people, where they go, oh, I get it. This guy gets me. This guy gets exactly what I'm upset about. I've never heard someone verbalize my anger in this way. I've never heard someone communicate exactly my desires in this way. I felt lonely before. I didn't realize that there were other people who also felt this exact same way. That's my job. And my job is also to obviously inform people. So I think a lot of people see what I have to do as almost like Zoomer NPR, where they just tune in and they get some of their news while I'm in the background, while they're doing chores or at work, and I'm just kind of speaking and walking them through the day's news in a way that is, I think, probably easier to digest, in a way that is more personable, in a way where I am angry a lot of times. And I think that anger is something that they also share. That feeling is something that they also share. So they're there for that.
That makes me think about something else. Another sort of phrase that's being thrown around: Joe Rogan on the left. Joe Rogan on the left. Like after the election last year, there was a lot of talk about, like political influence and manosphere and bro podcasters. And, some political commentators have been calling for a Joe Rogan of the left. And some people have pointed to you as someone who could possibly be that person, or who is that person. I don't know, but I wonder, do you think that the Joe Rogan of the left is like the right solution to push for?
No. And I keep repeating to people that the Joe Rogan of the left is a silly thing to look for. I'm sorry, I just put gum in my mouth.
You gotta break it down first.
Almost done. I just put 2 every time. I'm a bit of an addict. I'm a nicotine addict, so if I don't have nicotine gum or Zyn,
you got something to chew. I understand.
I have an oral fixation. Okay. People keep asking me about whether or not we need a Joe Rogan of the left, or whether or not I am the Joe Rogan of the left, and I keep repeating to the Democrats at least that like a Joe Rogan is not going to solve their problems. They need to change their policies. They need to actually, do real politics, which is so strange for me to say. But I love that, like, all of the advice I've given to Democratic consultants, to CNN, to NBC, CBS, and every other outlet that's interviewed me, there was a guy out there who actually was organically doing exactly the things that I was saying, and he had tremendous success in the Democratic primary in the New York mayoral race. His name is Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did that. He went out, he asked people, why did you vote for Trump? Or he asked people, what are some of your biggest concerns? And he identified 5 of them. And he said, these are my 5 policies. I'm running on this. This is what I will do. I'm going to do a rent freeze. It's been done before. I'm going to make the buses fast and free. He's already done that. He's already worked with Eric Adams and pushed Eric Adams to do that on at least one of the routes. I'm going to increase the housing supply. I'm also going to tax the super rich to the best of my ability. I will work with Albany. I'm going to do that. And people looked at that and were like, okay, that sounds great. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
I mean, it was a very effective message. Everywhere I went in New York after a while, because I live here, you could see, obviously, his posters everywhere or whatever. But also, it was I would see a sign that said fast and free buses, universal childcare. These are all, I could rattle off his talking points after a while because they were so easy to remember. They had been so well packaged. They were very policy-based. The public, a lot of political commentators have interpreted Zohran Mamdani's win as some sort of grand surprise, but it sounds like what you're saying is these are kinds of the things that you think that the Democratic Party and Democratic politicians should have been embracing for a long time.
I've been saying it. I've been saying it. Bernie's been saying it. People say, I don't think they're unpacking it correctly, by the way. No disrespect to your colleagues or no disrespect to the members of traditional media, but I think they've either deliberately taken an obtuse framework here, or they just it's completely outside of their scope of imagination. Because I watch more news than people's racist grandparents do. I watch more Fox News than people's grandpas do, straight up. And I watch more CNN. I even watch Morning Joe, which I feel is the oldest somehow. It's even older than Fox News audience. In any case, I see all of this commentary, and I think what they're saying is they only identify Zohran's victory with he's young, he's charismatic, and he did good social media. Yeah. All 3 of those things are true, right? But they only played a role in highlighting the platform policies that he had. It's actually the policies that caused people to pay attention to him. That was what was first and foremost the most important thing, because no one knew who Zohran was. It's not like people were young Cardamom fans ahead of time and they were like, oh my God, that's my favorite rapper. I can't, I'm so glad he's running for mayor.
What you're saying, too, it makes me think about something else. I mean, there's been this idea, I think pretty much since 2016, but it's really picked up a lot of steam, especially since 2024 election, that the Democratic Party or the left, progressive politics in general, are just too woke, too PC for young men to feel comfortable, to feel like they can engage, because they're so worried that they're going to say or do the wrong thing and get canceled. There's been kind of a popular line of thought that in order to capture young men and to get young men invested in politics, or to get young men invested in a politician enough to want to go vote for them, that they need to engage in some of the bro stuff that we discussed earlier, really trying to just signify and code as many things as possible. But when I think about Zohran Mamdani's specific brand of masculinity, it feels so not what so many people's knee-jerk reaction has been. He's a guy, he's walking the streets, he's in a suit, he's telling you fast and free buses, universal child care, and rent freeze. I don't know. I'm wondering, like, what do you make of that? That there's this like popular train of thought that we got to embrace sort of bro aesthetics to get young men invested in politics, with Zohran Mamdani's win, where he did engage a lot of young male voters. And he also is a young man himself who's not embodying this idea of what a lot of, both political commentators and armchair theorists alike think that the left should be embracing.
Yeah, I think he was just being himself, and that's what's important. And here's another guy who's always being himself, uncompromisingly, in an unyielding manner, who was also incredibly affable, someone that people love. His name is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is not this incredibly beloved figure in American politics and has like a broad appeal across political ideologies because he's super sexy or because he's just really good at social media. He's like incredibly charismatic. Like, no disrespect to Unc, but Bernie is very old. But the reason why people like him is because he is an earnest communicator and he has been an incredibly stubborn guy for all of his life, for his entire life. He's always been anti-establishment. He's always advocated for select policies that you can very easily identify. He is defined by what he is advocating for. And I think politicians need to remember that. That's what they need to do, because ultimately that's what we want. I'm not going to Wendy's because I really want to read what's on the menu. I'm going to Wendy's to get a Baconator, okay? And I think people forget that. In politics, like, your job is the policies. Put the policies in the bag. Put the policies in the bag. I don't care about anything else. I only care about what you can do for me. And I want the Democrats to remind themselves of this, because Republicans certainly know that is the way to win elections. They will either create hysteria surrounding issues where they will actively position vulnerable populations and minorities as like the vector of hate and the reason for all of the things that are going wrong in American society, and then they'll actively write legislation to harm them. But that's something that they're offering to their bases, whereas the Democratic Party refuses to do that, and oftentimes even refuses to recognize that people are angry, or even sometimes will say there's only certain forms of anger that are appropriate. Your kind of anger is actually an expression of male rage, let's say, and therefore inappropriate or something. I don't know. It's just like, it's perceived as smug, elitist, entitled, and completely out of touch by a lot of people. And I think it's not just men in general. There are a lot of people feel this way about the Democrats. And the best possible way to stop that is by just being normal, being chill, being someone that's fun to be around, and genuinely caring about improving people's material circumstances, because that's what your job is as a politician at the end of the day.
When you're talking about policies and the right, Republicans' approach to that, it makes me think about the fact that, like, since Trump's been in office, like, we've seen countless ramifications, right, for the things that he's promised. Immigration enforcement, cuts to federal disaster aid, cuts to Medicaid. And if you're online as much as I am, then, you've seen the gamut of reactions from, Americans, like, all across the political spectrum. A lot of people are not happy. But I wonder, how has this moment maybe influenced how you want to speak and who you're trying to reach?
Oh, it hasn't changed my rhetoric or strategy even remotely, because I literally said that this was going to happen. As a matter of fact, I said that this was going to happen after Trump wins, before Trump even won. I've been saying this for the past 10 years. I've seen this cycle play itself out every single time. Republicans think they like a policy because the Republican politicians whip up hysteria surrounding a thing that they claim is happening. And the most common example of this is migrant crime. Or before, it was always white supremacist versions of that, specifically that was like anti-black, right?
What you're saying reminds me of that Lyndon B. Johnson quote. If you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you.
And that's true. I mean, white supremacy is a fairly important motivating principle But I think that the most adequate solution against that is not simply to say like, oh, this person is a white supremacist and these people can never change their positions or whatever. It's I come at this from a place of understanding that we are all victim to social conditioning, and that if we are to understand as leftists, as progressives, that America is a racist, sexist, homophobic, bigoted country, then it's understandable that there's going to be expressions of said bigotry that is left dormant in a lot of people who have not explored or gone on a political journey and kind of just like take all of these pre-existing social constructs for granted as though it is the norm. And possibly because, I am a privileged person. I'm a straight white man. I guess like the only line of attack in that regard is usually the fact that I'm Muslim, and Turkish. But from my position of privilege, I guess I am more comfortable to be able to say this. But I recognize and can be a little bit more forgiving of people's, I guess, micro aggressions and people's issues, and be able to work through that. I can take on this emotional labor because it's not as exhausting for someone like myself, because it doesn't directly impact me in that way. And I understand that everyone has what I like to call privilege blind spots. There's an intersectionality to oppression. There's an intersectionality to privilege. Yeah. And I think everyone has some kind of a privilege blind spot. Like many Americans, as a matter of fact, for example, have the blind spot of being a part of the labor aristocracy, that they are beneficiaries of the unequal exchange that we have from the global South, where they are immediately in a much better material circumstance than like someone living in the DRC, someone someone living in the global South that's seeing a lot of conflict, someone living in Yemen, for example. And we have sometimes animosity towards people like this without even realizing that we have this. So like I try to work people through that by showcasing the humanity of people in the global South, by trying to give them a voice. That is how I work through it, because I come at it from an understanding that like everyone has like some kind of a blind spot, and it's not because they're truly evil people. And I don't subscribe to good, bad dynamics when it comes to politics. I understand that people are just simply a victim to their social conditioning, or just kind of going along and trying to survive every single day without really reading too much into how sociopolitical constructs have been defined and exist in society, and how that might impact them and others around them.
Getting outside of the current news cycle, you spend a lot of time online. I think that's an understatement. And as somebody who also spends a lot of time online, I'm sure that you also have seen so many things that were sort of like casual, sort of online or social media trends, or sort of currents that you saw bubbling up in culture become extremely politically relevant over the past like 5 or so years. I'm wondering, like, I don't know, what are you seeing or noticing right now that, maybe the everyday person isn't familiar with, that you think that they should be paying attention to because it might become extremely politically or culturally relevant, very, very soon in ways that they might not be thinking about?
Ooh, I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day, but I feel like young conservatives, especially those who work in politics, are definitely a lot more right-wing, like ideologically invested in I would say far-right Nazi stuff, or Catholic nationalism, or whatever, like Christian dominionism, like whatever iteration of far-right ideology they've developed for themselves. It's usually a manifestation of fascism. And I think there's a lot more people, especially in politics, that are under the age of 35 on the Republican side that abide by these principles and live out those desires than we think. So I say watch the space. There's also another thing that I've been noticing where pure reactionary politics have basically turned into this incredible endeavor where it's so hyper focused on owning the libs and like getting a reaction out of liberals, that nowadays I think there is nowadays any sort of reaction, no matter what that reaction is, like disgust, revulsion, is still, I think, considered a positive in like conservative circles.
Interesting. So it's not even about like when you talk about owning the libs, I think like about like those Jubilee videos where people go on and
Oh
like
God.
debate 50 people or something like that. That's a whole other conversation. But what you're saying is sort of like anything. It's almost like reminds me of like I don't know when my younger sister and I used to fight when we were children. And it's like anything that irritates you
Yes.
is a win for me.
Yes. And any
Hmm.
kind of irritation is a win. It doesn't matter what the punishment is for yourself, what the penalties are for yourself that you're incurring in the process. It's just you made them react. You made them react in a negative fashion, and that's good.
And that's enough.
It's like a child. I think we're getting dumber. That's the other thing. I think we're just getting dumber and dumber. We have no interest in the arts. We have no interest in culture. Everything is turned into content. Movies are content now. Everything is TikTok aura moments. Movies are being made for TikTok aura moments. All of that, I think, is just lowering the standards for everything else.
I wonder what's the alternative?
I don't know. I don't know what the alternative is. I think taking a step back, taking a breather, becoming a Luddite, deciding that there's too much technological progress and it's
Getting a dumb
important.
phone?
Yeah, it's important to just like kind of scale down your over reliance on tech.
Mm.
Not that I do that. I mean, I don't do that. I'm live every single day.
I
I mean, I
thought
kind of do that
saw
for
what?
AI. Like, I don't use any AI whatsoever. That's just
Oh.
like, I have not used any AI. I think I've like been on ChatGPT one time for a video or something. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. And maybe it's because I'm old. I'm 33 years old. Maybe I'm a boomer. But I think that
Very old. That's funny.
well, in my line of work, that's you're dead. You know.
Mm.
They ask like the young NBA recruits what age is unk, and they say like anything past 25 is unk. Yeah.
I think I was 31 the first time that a younger colleague called me their OG. So yeah, I mean, it does sneak up on you. It does sneak up on you.
Yeah, you go past 25, you're unk or auntie or OG. It's over.
I got one last question. I'm just curious. I'm just purely curious. I am not indicating that you've given me any type of clues. But, I mean, you are extremely invested in politics. You've got this gigantic audience. It's only growing. One of our producers, Alexis, her mom watches you.
That's crazy.
Like, yeah, like you listen, you're getting intergenerational with it. Or at least there's definitely potential there to continue to grow. I wonder, like, I don't know, would you ever run for office? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
No. It's not. People ask me that all the time. It's not. I think I'm too hot-headed. I'm too hot-headed, and I'm too uncompromising. I feel like there are better people out there with a better background that can do a better job. Well, the other side of it is that I also push for things beyond politics with regular frequency. I think that like voting for someone or getting a position in the office is not the end all be all. As a matter of fact, it's the first step. And it's oftentimes quite insignificant in terms of building a grander political movement. And I work completely outside of the confines of just like electoralism. I mean, it's not something that I abhor. It's not something that I say, oh, I don't care about this or whatever. I do care about it. But I think it's only a means to an end. It's not the end itself.
But I wonder, I don't know, you also described yourself as like being old in your line of work. Like, what do you like, I don't know, like Hasan is 60. Like, what are you doing? What is that? Like, are you going to be streaming? I saw, like, I think recently you said on Twitter or something like that you realized that you hadn't taken a weekend off from streaming in like, what, 18 months or a year and a half or something
18
like
months,
that? Like,
no, since 2018.
2018, that's what it was, since 2018.
I had not taken 3 continuous days off.
Right. You can't do that at 60. You can't do that at 60. So what is that? Like, I don't know, 27 years from now.
That's what you think.
Sure,
I mean, that's
sure.
the thing. I don't know. I'm going off of vibes for the most part. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate to have such a massive audience of like-minded individuals. When I first started, I never thought I would get to this position in my career. I never thought that I would be one of the largest content creators on the platform in general. I thought, maybe I'll be like a small-sized political content creator, because obviously,
Yeah.
like, in the realm of politics, like there's a ceiling for that kind of
Yeah.
thing. I never realized that I would be not just the largest political content creator, but like the largest content creator, one of the largest content creators in general for like the past 5 years now at this point. So I never take it for granted, because I remember how the internet was before. There were more people like myself out there who were out and about and loud about their politics, their leftist ideals.
You feel like there's fewer people now?
No, I remember when there was basically nobody, is what I'm
I
saying.
see.
Back
I
when I
see.
used
I
to
see.
work at the Young Turks, I mean that was a minefield. It was devastating. We've kind of gotten back to that world again with like it's almost Gamergate 2.0 at this point.
You're
There
not the
are
only person I've heard say that.
there are definitely a lot of Gamergate associations, I would say, that I would maybe like the contemporary right-wing movement online. The same apolitical centrist people who claim to be apolitical and centrist, but like Donald Trump on the virtues of content, but also really like his policies. And then maybe they actually like white supremacist ideals as well behind the policies. And I remember having to tackle that so much in like 2016, 2017, like at the end stage of Gamergate, where there were so many of these like video game commentary people that were just like white supremacists and neo-Nazis, or were collaborating with neo-Nazi white supremacists openly and trying to push their audience through that funnel. And I think that had a devastating impact on a lot of young men at the time. And we've brought that back at this point for sure. I think that still very much exists. I'm out there trying to do my very best to try to pull people away from that radicalization pipeline. But I do think that a lot of the centrist and, dare I say, liberal or self-identified liberal accounts play a formative role in actively pushing young men away from people like myself into the arms of the radical neo-Nazi style movements, because they are so predisposed with like attacking someone like myself that they just drop the ball. They forget that there is a far greater evil, at least from our shared understanding of the world.
Well, Hasan, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.